Great, thank you. All right. So before we actually go into the app and show you BookNook, the first thing that we want to do is we want to go through setting up the program. And what you're going to do is you're actually going to set up BookNook via video chat first. So using the platform of your choice, if Zoom is the approved platform for your district, you can use Zoom. However, schools are also using Google Meets, Microsoft Teams, or any other video conferencing platform. You're going to open up the video conferencing, the video chat, and then also have your students open up and join you as well. Now, once you've established that you can see and hear students via video chat, you're going to open up another browser, or you can open up the app if you'd like to download it onto your device. We are available in all app stores, including Google Play and the Apple Store. You're going to open up BookNook as well. So to be clear, both you and your students are going to have two programs running. You're going to have a video conferencing running so that you can see and speak to students and offer support. And then you're also going to have BookNook running so that you can see the lesson as well as your students. They're going to see their assessments as well. And the data is going to be collected from how they complete the lesson and reported to you. Now, we understand that the first day, this may be a couple of extra steps. So what we've done is we're going to provide everyone here with a couple of resources, including our parent messaging form. So it's going to be a one-pager that goes through the logistics of how to log into BookNook for the first time. We recommend sending this out to family members so that there's someone present that first day. We found after students go through it once or twice, they are able to log on and complete the process themselves. Another resource that we want to give you all is a Google Sheet. So we want to make sure that you have something to organize all of your students and all of your BookNook sessions. So you will also be getting this resource where you can organize students based on their student name and username, which you'll see here. It's first name dot last name. You can even put your Zoom link on this page as well. We have the BookNook link here. And then you would just put students on the day that they're going and at the time. So if it is needed in Spanish, we will also be giving that to you all as well. The last thing that you want to let families know are the devices that we are compatible on. So you can use BookNook on an iPad, Chromebook, Android, Mac, PC, and tablets. At the moment, we are not compatible with cell phones, so there does need to be some sort of other device in the household. So in a moment, I'm going to go into the app and actually show you how BookNook works. Before I do that, I do want to pause and see if there are any questions about how to set up BookNook remotely. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and switch gears. Now, taking a look at the different sites that we have for Alum Rock, it looks like we have the majority elementary. Now, we have a couple of different curriculums in BookNook. So I'm going to overview a couple of them. I'm hoping that I can go through both of them in the app. I'm going to start out first with our phonics curriculum. So our phonics curriculum is going to support students that are reading level K through 2. So students that are reading at the equivalent of a grade level of K through 2 will be looking specifically at our phonics curriculum. Students above those reading levels will be working on our comprehension curriculum. So after phonics, I'm going to quickly overview the format of those lessons because they tend to differ. So I am logged in to the app. I'm using Adelante today for our training. It's one of your sites. And when you log in, you're going to see that your overview page first gives you data on how your students are doing. So as you progress, you're going to see data on the standards completed, the students reading at grade level, and other specific data. Now on that first day, to get student information, you are going to go to the student tab. So the usernames are all going to be stored here. As you can see here, for the majority of your sites, everything has already been set up for you. So you're going to see that you have your students in the app already, as well as you should have received your login. If you did not, we can connect following this to make sure that you get your login for the correct site. Now, students have no password, so they only need to remember their username, which is their first name dot last name. Next, I want to take us to our sessions tab. Our sessions tab is going to be where all your sessions are logged. So if you need to go back and look at a session, maybe you want to look at the questions you did, maybe you want to look at the book, the content, any notes that you recorded, you can go ahead and find that here. Now, let's say you want to take a look at the lesson content before you go into it. You can find our library of lessons on the Lessons tab. We have organized everything by their grade and reading level. And if you click on the standard, it's going to show you the books that we have available. It'll also allow you to preview the vocabulary words, the assessment questions, as well as the book, and start the session from here. Last but certainly not least, we have reports. So our reports tab is going to give you a quick overview of how your students are doing in terms of student progress and in terms of usage. So without further ado, I'm going to start a session. Now, we have two features that you can use in the app. We have our guided session, which is what you will be using when you go through your sessions, but we also have a feature here called leveling. Now, your students were put in based on their last assessment, and the reading level that they're at right now reflects that. However, if you'd like to do an assessment in a cycle, for example, let's say every 6 to 8 weeks, you'd like to re-level students to see where they're at, we also have this leveling tool available. It's very similar to a running record, just virtually. It takes 5 to 10 minutes with each student. Now I'm going to log us into a guided session. You'll see that it has a 6 student maximum. However, that is flexible if needed. You can always reach out. So when you log in, the first thing that you're going to see is you're going to see your student list. Once your students log in, we are going to see their names pop up here with a blue dot next to them. Now, if my student isn't in, I can still search their name and click on it. Now, the great thing about this page is that even if a student isn't logged in, let's say they're having connectivity issues, you can still add the student to your group and get started. And then when that student is able to log in, they'll actually just, thank you, Ben, they'll actually just catch up to where you're at. And last but not least, if it's a new student, you can always add a student account right here. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and choose my lesson. Now, the great thing about BookNook is it's going to look at the reading level of that particular student. It's going to look at the standards that they have completed already and need to complete, and then it's going to give you a suggested lesson based on that. So the suggested lesson is always going to support your students moving forward in whichever reading level they're at. However, you can always change a lesson if needed. I'm going to click on Change Lesson. Now, because the student is rating at a level Q, which is approximately 4th grade, I was on it this time, which is approximately a 4th grade reading level, you're going to see that it automatically goes to our comprehension curriculum. If a student is reading at a K through 2, which is the equivalent of a reading level A through I, it is automatically going to switch to our phonics curriculum. So I'm actually going to take us through phonics first. So I'm going to go ahead and change the lesson. I'm going to look at all the books I have available supporting this standard.
Natasha, I believe we had a request in the chat we have some Spanish speaking instructors, DLL speaking instructors. Could we highlight a DLL lesson?
Definitely. I'm not sure if the student side is going to show up in DLL, but let's go ahead and look at the guide side. So just a note, and thank you, Ben, for pointing that out, because that's a really great feature for us to highlight. Our DLL feature provides all scaffolding in both English and Spanish for ELL students. So they'll be able to see all the vocabulary, they'll be able to see all the assessment questions and activities in both English and Spanish. So you'll see here, it's going to give the welcome intro in both languages, as well as providing audio for both. And then what you're looking at here is going to be your screen. So it tells you what you're going to introduce to students. It tells you in both English and Spanish if you use one of our DLL lessons. And then it shows you down here what the students are seeing. So students are going to see each of the words. They're going to see a visual, and they'll be able to use the audio.
Dad.
And for ELL students, they're also going to be able to use the audio in Spanish as well.
Papa.
Now we typically take a couple of minutes for that intro to new material before going into our practice activities. We like to focus on having our practice activities engaging and fun, so you'll see a lot of games in BookNook reviewing the content that we learned. Here, the students are going to group the words. You have a screen here that lets you review the instructions with the kids before starting the activity. Now, what you're seeing here is the guide side. Let's say you want to preview the student activity. You're going to see here that you have this feature called Preview Activity, and you'll be able to see what the students are seeing. Along with that, as my students answer questions, I'm going to be able to track their progress here. So all of my students are going to be on this progress bar here. And each time they answer a question, it's going to light up green if they get it correctly, and then red if they do not. Next, we're going to go into building a word. So this is the second activity. Typically for our phonics, we have anywhere from 2 to 3 different practice rounds before assessment, before reading and then assessment. So now here, students are going to be asked to complete the words. Again, you have both the preview activity and the tracking feature. And then once we're done, we're going to move on to the book. So, book time during phonics. Our recommendation is that you read aloud to your group and they follow along. We start with a discussion question before we move into the reading. Now you'll notice that the reading is in English only. Our focus or our goal is to provide students with enough scaffolding before and after the reading that they understand the reading itself in English. For reference, this would be a level A, a kindergarten reading level. And then when we get to the end of the book, we're going to close the book. We have a couple of guided questions that you can use just to start conversation with the kids before we move into practice. Now, practice, as you'll see in the instructions at the top of the screen, is going to be the assessment portion of phonics. So you do want to make sure that each of your students are working independently. You're going to see the format and the content does match what we did at the beginning of this lesson. So it should be, the questions that they're answering should be familiar. And one more time, you have both features, the preview activity and the progress monitoring tracking down here. Now, when I click next, it lets me know we're done. Before I exit out of this, I do want to make sure I show you one more feature before I show you the final screen. Let's say you're doing a BookNook session and you run out of time and you want to be able to revisit the same session. Instead of clicking next and completing the actual session, you're actually going to find the BookNook icon in the top left corner. Click on the icon and select Sign Out. Sign Out is actually going to allow you to, the following day, go to the Sessions tab and rejoin the same exact session where you left off with the same students that were in your group. For today, we're going to complete it. You'll see it asks me if I want to put in a couple of notes before giving me data on my students. So it'll list every single student here. It'll say whether or not they passed, and if they did not, it'll give you the reason why, as well as noting a level change if there is one. And then we're all done. So that was our phonics curriculum. Again, that is going to be for the younger students that you're working with. I wanted to pause one more time, take any questions or comments before moving forward.
Natasha, we have a request to see the leveling tool. And I think, believe we'll get to that after we highlight the a comprehension lesson. Sorry. Yeah,
we'll definitely walk you through what it looks like. It's a pretty cool tool. It is definitely used for a quick assessment of students. So when we go through it, I just want to note that it isn't going to be like one of our lengthy assessments. It's meant to be a tool that you can use to see where a student's reading level is and then assign the appropriate curriculum within BookNook. But before that, I'm going to go into a comprehension session. So comprehension is what the kids 3rd grade through and above will be looking at. Now again, to shy away from grade level reading levels, you'll see that we use Fontes and Pinnell reading levels. And so we go from reading level A through Z. So comprehension is going to support students that are level J through Z. Okay, I'm going to find my students. Now I'm going to go to the different side of the spectrum. We saw a level A. We're going to look at a level Q. And it tells you here what we're going to do. The student is already at the reading level Q, and so it's just giving me a suggested lesson. I'm okay with it, so I'm going to start the session. Now you'll see in comprehension, because students have the ability to read the instructions and what's on their screen a little bit more, we ask a couple more questions, including how they're feeling. So the first screen is going to ask students via emojis how they're feeling today. And similar to our phonics lesson, you'll see that BookNook tells you what to do and what to say at the beginning of every section. So you won't need to remember, oh, this is new words. Okay, I have to do this. It's going to give you the instructions in every session, in every section. So here it tells me, I'm going to try to move this menu if I can. There we go. It tells me to review and discuss vocabulary words with students, and then it asks me if any of the words look or sound familiar. And then this is going to be my student screen here. So they'll be able to see the image, the word, and click on the audio.
Diagram, a drawing that shows how the parts of something work together.
Moving on from introduction, we then have each student work on the vocabulary on their own. In the preview activity, you're going to see that the student screen takes them step by step through each vocabulary word, asks them to practice spelling, and reviewing the definitions. Now, once the students have an understanding of what these new words are, they're going to play words and birds. So this is my personal favorite game in BookNook. The students are going to see the definitions in the top left corner, and they're going to see words flying across the screen, and they want to click on the correct word as quickly as possible. No, I didn't click on it fast enough. However, the faster the student clicks on it, the more points they get. Now, after we end the game, it lets us know which students scored the most points. And then we go into our first assessment of our comprehension lesson. So this first question time is just going to be based on what we just learned. You're going to see that the assessment questions move from just a word and definition to completing a sentence, so using it in a more contextual sense. And I'll show you an example here. Now, after the student goes through all of the assessment questions, it'll let me know when all my kids are done. Oh, there we go. Then we're going to go into reading time. Similar structure, we're going to read the book together. Students will play an interactive game where they review what we just read before going into an assessment. Just reminds me what today's objective is and the book that we will be reading. And then it tells me how many pages. So the reason we do this is we want to make sure that we are setting you up to structure reading time how you'd like to. So let's say you want to model the first several pages and then split it up amongst your group. We want to make sure you know how many pages there are. We will also have discussion questions that pop up throughout the book, and we recommend that you use these as stopping points to talk to the students about the story. So when I start, my first discussion question is going to pop up. I'm going to read it to my group, talk to them about it. before moving on to the first page. Now, let's say I'm going to have each student read aloud to the group. What I can do is you have the ability to flip the pages for the entire group. So when I click this green arrow, it's flipping the page for every single student in my group. But let's say I want to make sure that the student that is reading is able to do that. You're going to see all your student names listed above, and apologies, this little menu is blocking it. But if you click on the student name, it's actually going to move the arrows from your control to the student that you clicked on. So now you can see my first step. A student is reading and clicking the pages. Now this is an option. You don't have to do that. If you want to be the person that flips the pages, you definitely can. You'll just keep it highlighted on your name. Now, when we get to the end of the book, we're going to close the book. We have a couple of talking points at the end. You can use one of them, you can use all of them, it's up to you. And we asked for some feedback about the book from the kids before we go into Feed the Animals. So this game is a little different. We are going to feed animals based on what we read in the book. So let's take a preview of the activity. In this first round, we are going to feed the mouse by identifying what was in the book. I'm going to take my best guess. I believe I saw this name, I saw a flute, and I think I saw, that was really, that was 3 really good guesses. Now, after a couple of rounds of this, students are going to show as completed. You can end the game, and it lets you know who scored the most points. Before we move into the final question time of this lesson. So this question time is now going to be based on what we read in the book. Remember, the first question time was based on the vocabulary and the words that we covered before reading. And the second one is going to be based on the book. Both of these assessments provide us data as to whether or not the student should move on to the next standard, or if they should revisit the standard in the next session through a different reading. I'm going to give some feedback. And once we are done with this assessment, we're all done. So similar to what you saw in our phonics session, you can put in notes. It gives you data, and then it stores it for you. One thing I do want to note is I talked about that rejoin feature in the phonics lesson, but I didn't show you where you rejoin. So if you sign out and you want to rejoin the next day or up to 7 days after, you can just go to the sessions tab. And then instead of seeing completed, you're going to see a green button that says rejoin. You click on that rejoin button and it's going to take you straight into the lesson, and it's going to add your kids in as well. All right, I'm going to take one more pause before I go through the very last part of this training, which is leveling. So any questions that you have?
Natasha, I think we had one good question for teachers to contextualize is how does a student actually sign in?
Great question. I'd love to take a moment and kind of show you visually what that looks like. So if I am the student, I'm going to sign out from mine. If I'm the student, I'm going to follow the link that's given, and you can put it in that, that Excel spreadsheet that we shared with you, or you can have the students bookmark it. This is a little different because a lot of schools bookmark our app, and so students know to click on the BookNook app. If they are able to download the app on their device is great, but they can also access us via our website, which will be provided following this in the material that I sent. For reference, our website is app.booknooklearning.com. Now, the first screen that students are going to see looks like this. So if I'm a student, I was given my username by my teacher. I'm going to put in the top, my first name is Natasha, my second name, my last name, excuse me, is Brown. And then it logs me in. Now, this is a great feature that a lot of people discover on their first day. When students log in, let's say you haven't started a lesson yet and they log in early, they're not just going to stare at this screen and wait for you. They're actually going to be able to interact with games that we have in the app. And they'll be able to play these games. We have a couple of different ones. I feel like I've almost seen all of them. They'll be able to play these games until you set up your lesson. And then once you click start lesson, it's going to automatically change their screen. So you won't have to do anything, or you won't have to say, hey, log out of the games. It's going to automatically change it for them. So remember, this is a student screen. I'm going to switch gears now. I'm going to go back to the guide screen. So now I'm back in my guide account. And I wanted to take you guys through quickly our leveling tool. So again, our leveling is an assessment that you can use with the kids one-on-one to determine where their reading level's at. So you log in the same way. You do, again, want to make sure that you are only selecting one student because leveling can only be done with one student. Now it tells you the instructions. So students are going to read a short passage. You're going to have the same passage on your screen. While the student is reading, if they make a mistake, you're going to click on that word and mark it as an error. Let's say the student says it incorrectly, but then corrects themselves. You're going to click on that word, but you're going to mark it as a self-correct. And if you selected the word accidentally, you can just click on it and remove it. Okay, so let's start. So this is going to be the passage. Again, this is a higher level. This is a level Q, so that's why it is a lengthy passage. It's adjusted based on the student's reading level. And I'm going to click Start Reading. Now I want to note your student is never going to see any of the words that you're clicking on. They're not going to see the timer. They're not going to see the errors. The only thing that they're going to see on their screen is this passage. Now let's say I hear a word said incorrectly. I hear another word said incorrectly. Thought I heard this word, but they self-corrected. Maybe I marked this incorrectly. Just gonna remove it. And I'm gonna follow this as they continue reading. Now, when the student is done reading, I'm gonna make sure to click Done Reading. On the student side, they are now asking several comprehension questions based on the passage we just read. And when the student is done, I don't have a student logged in, so it won't tell me now, but when the student is done, you're gonna see this turn from this to a check mark. And then when I click Next, it's gonna give me some data. So it tells me the accuracy rate of the student, the words per minute, and comprehension. Now it tells me the student's current reading level, and it tells me based on today's reading level, based on today's assessment, excuse me, they should move down to a level P. If you are okay with this assessment, you can select the green button, and it's actually going to change the student's curriculum to the suggested reading level. However, if you feel like the student was having a bad day, you want to assess them again in a couple of days, you can click no, this seems wrong, and it's going to keep them at the same reading level as they were at before they did this assessment. I'm going to agree with it. And now you can see it's updated my student's reading level. All right, so let's pause there again to see if there are any questions that we have about the leveling tool.
We had one question about if they wanted to see a lower level of the same thing. For time's sake, I'm not sure if we want to show that, but just know that the passages will be much shorter and again, matched to that relevant reading level. Also, if you want to assess someone again at the same reading level, they will get a new passage. It will not be a repetition of the same passage over and over again.
Yeah, and exactly what Ben said, for students that are at a younger reading level, it's not going to have that whole package. So for example, So for example, for a level A, it may just have one very simple sentence that is at a level A reading level. The whole structure is exactly the same. So you'll click on the words, you'll have the student read it. The only difference is the reading is going to be significantly shorter and easier.
Just a suggestion, that something that I would like to see, I don't know if your time would have allowed it, but what I'd like to see in your future presentation is maybe if you could be the teacher and Ben could be the student, for an example, and have him read it and make mistakes, and then you put down, so we can kind of really get a sense of what it's going to look like for ourselves.
Yeah, thank you for that. So I'm glad you said that, because our usual training is actually we log in as the guides, and then we have each and every one of our participants log in as students. The reason why we do that is because you're able to see the guide screen here, and then we have our participants logging in as students so they can see the student experience.
And I also have, I was just going to say, I have a suggestion for teachers. I know one of the questions was, do we have a feature where we can put the word missed? Because I find that when I'm doing this, my normal guided reading level screeners, I get a lot of valuable information from the words that they miss. But what you could do is just on a separate piece of paper, be keeping tally of what they said and what the word was, just on the ones that they missed. That way you could still get the information, and you just for your own sake. That's just my suggestion.
Yeah, the reason why we don't do, to finish up from before, the reason why we don't do the student experience is because we've had a large group. We've been doing these trainings large groups since a lot of schools are onboarding their entire staff, and unfortunately we can't support 50 students in one training, and so we kind of steered away from that and used the preview activity. But that is a really great suggestion.
One more quick question. Does, when it gives information feedback to me, does it say child is weak in silent E, for an example, if they kept making those mistakes, or they're missing the endings of words, or they're adding S to the ends of words? Does it give any specifics so that I can tell parents what they can work on, or is that something I just have to take from my own notes?
So in terms of reading, it doesn't give you the specifics because the app takes data based on what the student inputs. However, if you are doing this video conferencing, and so if you could just take keep note and then have those notes there, and then when you check in with the parents, just make sure.
Okay.
And if you're recognizing those particular errors in a comprehension or in a phonics lesson, that notes feature Natasha highlighted is there for you to input anything you see throughout the lesson. So it tracks with the student, and it will be shared with anybody else who is, say, if you have a paraprofessional or a co-teacher who is working with that student, they will also see those notes to then think about reflecting on those as they do an instruction with the student.
Okay, so there's a place for me to type that in on this, like when I'm done with the kid, then I can put my notes.
At the end of the comprehension and phonics lessons, yes.
Oh, okay, okay, yep. Thank you.
And I can also, if you click on the session tab, you can always go back and revisit those notes by going back to the session that you did. And it's gonna have your notes there, like, and it'll tell you specifically for each student what note you put in. So it's a really great feature.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I want to keep the space open for questions and comments for a little bit longer. As we do that, I do want to make sure that you know how to contact us. So again, all of your information in terms of student accounts have already been created in the app. We have connected with Brittany as well as the IT for Alum Rock, and they did a really great job at getting all of that information in and students at the correct reading level based on the previous assessment that they took with you all. You should have all also gotten your logins. If you did not, you can definitely email us at support@booknooklearning.com and we can forward it to the correct IT person. Or if you already know who your IT point person is for your school, you can email them directly. All of your IT have administrative access to BookNook, so they can do the features like adding staff accounts, adding student accounts, and also contacting us. So again, if there's anything you need, you can email us at support@booknooklearning.com. If you just want a quick overview of a couple of things that we did in this training, you can check our BookNook FAQ page. Otherwise, all your sites are ready to go. You're ready to start using BookNook. Please, please, please check in with us and let us know if we can be of support in any way. Apologies.
We had a couple follow-up questions about leveling that I know you guys are concerned about. I wanted to make sure I just speak to for everyone. So a question about, will the comprehension questions be read out loud to the students? The answer is no, but the questions have been created by formal educators, so they should be appropriate to their grade reading level, and so therefore should be able to be read by a student if it's at that age. The timer feature is present in all of those leveling tool sessions as well, and the leveling passages are just text, just for reference. We also had a bunch of questions about seeing your students presently in your app. Some of you, your admin have already input your roster into your app, and so you have seen them, I think. Others, if you enter your app now and you don't see anybody, it's because your admin has not input the students yet. And make sure I'm getting all the questions, sorry. Again, as Natasha said, you can rejoin a feature a lesson. If you rejoin, it will take you back to the most logical stopping point, and it will rejoin all the students at that same spot that were in that relevant session with you. And let's see if I'm missing anyone else. Sorry, back to the leveling tool. There was one more question about picking the passage. The app will pick the passage for you again. So unlike where our passages our lessons are selected by, you can allow the app to select the lesson or you can override it. For the leveling tool, the passages are going to be selected by the app. I will also note that our product team is currently working on the leveling tool. So in the middle of this school year, we will see a big update to that, and we're going to try and improve it based on, we understand that, especially in the time of coronavirus, people are relying more heavily on it for benchmark data. So we're going to try and improve it as best we can for you all. And we had another question. Trying to think if I missed anything else.
When you reassess, will we be using the same passage that, like, let's say I used for my last student?
Okay. Yeah. So sorry if I wasn't clear before. So if I sit down with a child and I want to work on, say, a little J passage, the system will automate that passage for me. if I want to retest them at level J, the system maybe made a suggestion of move up or move down, right? And I say, no, I want to try them again at level J. I will reject those results, and it will maintain that student's level at J. I will go through the same process, start the leveling session again. It will generate a new passage for me to practice with that student. So they're not reading the same thing over and over again. Instead, they're going to get practice on something different. And you might not see the same first passage for every child that you test at level J. It might be a variety of passages that appear to you.
Got it.
We have a couple of other questions, Ben. One was when we are testing the student, can they see the teachers marking the words? No, they can't see anything that you are doing. They're just going to see the passage. And in terms of the student rosters, so what we've done, because in this new remote setting, sometimes the rosters are changing and need to be adjusted. And so what we decided to do is to do an all student roster. And so our recommendation is to have your list of students that you're going to be working with, and then to use the search bar to type in their names. If they're logged in, you're going to see them pop up to the top. And so they'll come up to the top and be in blue, and you can just click on them. But because those rosters and the groups are ever changing, we want to make sure that you always have access to the students that you need to work with. So because of that, we've kept it open. I think we got all the questions. Ben, did we miss anything?
I think we got them all, but I very much appreciate that you guys asked the questions. It makes life a lot easier for us to kind of think and explain kind of where you're thinking about how this will work in your vision for your students. Makes our life a lot easier thinking about that. So great questions. Let's see. I don't know if anybody else popped up. We had one question about contact your IT. If our students are not in your account, it will be whoever is the relevant administrator. And Natasha, is that going to be a vice principal at each school, or?
So every principal is administrator of their specific school. So they also have access as well to add any student, to add students and other staff members. However, we also have your IT team. There are 2 people, as well as Brittany, that are admin at every single school. So you can always contact your principal immediately. They have access to your site, but you can also contact Brittany or Alum Rec IT, and they will be able to help you as well. In terms of teacher login, and so there was a question about a teacher logging in for the students, and then the teacher in another window. This is, I feel like this is a question for like the younger kids who are not yet at a point where they can log in, like maybe kindergarten. We've had a couple of partners that have actually done this. It does take logging into 3 different windows on your side, so it definitely means that if you're comfortable with tech, this should be something that you should be comfortable with tech before you attempt this. But it includes having up your Zoom or video conferencing, and then opening up a browser for your login, and then opening up a private browser or incognito window for the student. What that'll do is it'll tell you, the program, that you're 2 different people, and so you can actually have the students go through, and you'll see the student screen, and then maybe if you want to like walk them through and then click on the assessment questions for them, you can do that. Again, it includes going through 3 different screens, so I definitely recommend for those that feel comfortable with doing this tech-wise to do that. Yep, and so then there was another question on the timer. We're not sure specifically what the weight is in terms of the assessment. That I believe it is there for you to use. However, it doesn't have a heavy weight on how they are assessed. I believe it is mostly on their
I think it's accuracy and comprehension are weighted more heavily, and but I do believe they do change per grade reading level.
Yeah. And do we need to do something to sign out since the link is not working for everyone? Is this the link for, so if the link isn't working for you, it should be, try changing your Google account to your Alum Rock email, because if it's not, I would definitely connect with Brittany. Just let her know you didn't have access to the login, and then she'll be able to either give you a login or to add your name to that.
And just so people have that link again, here it is, but we don't have access to it, so we can't tell you exactly what's inside it if there is a sign out feature in there.
I would just go ahead and check that link. We're not sure if there's a sign out link.
Ms. Sadiq says there is.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So, and then we had a question about the roster again.
Yep. So that is all the students at the school are going to be there, and so when you're going to work with the students, you just have the list, and then you search them in the search bar. And then but if they do log in, they'll also pop to the top, so you can just click on them. And then we actually had someone answer.
Oh, sorry, I misspoke. Ms. Sadiq said that is only a sign-in link.
Oh, got it.
So we're not quite sure about the sign out part. Sorry, guys. And I do have the list of people who are not able to access the link at all. So I will make sure Brittany knows about that.
I think you sign in and out through the same link.
Right. It says on the form you sign in and sign out on the same Google form. So can you put the same Google link back up?
Yep. I'll copy it again and put it right to the top of this chat for everyone. It's right here.
It's to say sign in and out.
Okay.
All right. Well, again, we want to thank you all for attending this training. The email on the screen is where you can contact us with any questions. Can we not? Oh, we have one more question. Because of the groups changing, especially when we're doing it remotely, for the student roster, we right now for your sites we have full access. So it won't just be like a student roster of only your students. Again, we do that for remote so that students, and so that you can, as you rotate, you won't have to go through and change that. If that is something that is really needed, definitely connect with Brittany or the IT, and what we can actually do is we can go through and kind of change the feature specifically for your site. It does take a bit of time to individually assign each student to a staff member, which is why we want to make this as easy as possible for you all to use BookNook. So yeah, that's why it's not the default, but definitely reach out, let us know. We are here to support you all and to kind of accommodate you. And so if that is necessary, just send us an email. All right.
Okay, and just so I make sure if anybody is missing, I have Wendy, Roselle, Bridget, Mervat, Barbara, and Jesse are the people who are not able to make it to that link. I will add Ms. Cruz as well. Yeah.
Yes, I don't know if I can't get in.
Okay, I've got you noted.
We'll go ahead and send these names to Brittany so that she knows that you guys attended.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you all and enjoy the rest of your day. Hope everyone's staying safe.